welcome to Blackbriar Gaming. Today we're doing something a little bit different. I've wanted to do product reviews and painting tutorials and book reviews, live streaming for a while on the channel. If you follow my Instagram, you'll notice that I've been setting up a bit of a studio, a bit of a streaming live studio situation where I can do all of that. And I've been setting it up in a walk-in wardrobe, in a bedroom in my house, and we're getting there. It's a bit of a rudimentary setup to begin with, but it's set up and it's good to go, and I can come in here and do kind of reviews and anything I want whenever I want with a bit of privacy for my two tiny humans. So recently, the first thing I wanted to look at today were some miniatures that I picked up at a convention recently. CanCon is where we have a biggest wargaming convention here in Australia, I think, and we hold it here in Canberra every year, and there's always all kinds of great alternative sculpts kicking around and miniature designers that you might not otherwise hear about. And the ones that I want to look at today are some miniatures for a army that I think is going to be very popular coming up for the old world, which is Bretonnia, the Kingdom of Bretonnia. Now, I wanted to show you something quickly with my setup. So we've got the close-in view here, and we've also got a bit of an overhead situation as well. So this is what I'll use to do book reviews and for painting tutorials to change perspective and that kind of stuff as well. But we'll stick pretty close in today to have a look at these miniatures. So, as I was saying, Kingdom of Bretonnia, the old world was released yesterday. That is the 10th of Feb here in Australia, and I think it's going to be absolutely huge. And the Kingdom of Bretonnia is very popular. So, of course, I have all kinds of knights, plastic Pegasus knights, plastic goodies, Bretonnian goodies, which you haven't been able to get in Australia very easy for a very long time. You'll see I've got a miniature here. This is one of only 8 Bretonnian miniatures that I have. I have about 12 fantasy armies. Bretonnians are not one of them, so I'm very excited that the Bretonnians were one of the first releases for the old world. And I have a bunch on the way. But I want to do, of course, as I'm sure many others do, because it looks so much fun and so characterful, I want to do an exile army. So as I was kicking around CanCon, the big wargaming convention we have in my local city, Canberra, here in Australia, once a year, I was on the search for alternate sculpts of miniatures I could use for my exile Bretonnian army. And that's when I came across a stall where the name of the designers, the miniature creators, was Medbury Miniatures. Now, they've been around for a few years by the looks of it, and what they do is create a bunch of old school style metal, fantasy, and medieval miniatures. Now, we'll have a look at the size of these as we go, and we'll talk a bit about them, but essentially they had a bunch of stuff on offer. You know, they've got elves, they've got orcs, they've got humans. Their human range is what we'll be looking at today, and they're really nice. And they've designed a bunch of miniatures recently that fit quite well with Bretonnia, and in particular, what we'll be looking at is their bombard miniature here, and also some alternate sculpts for yeoman. That is the peasant yeoman, I guess is what they're called. That is the mounted yeoman. There we go. I think I got that right. Because bombard, there's not a great choice from GW, and we'll talk about potential alternates. And same the yeoman. They were all sold out within a very short amount of time online. They also cost like $125 dues for 5 of these horsey boys. Now, these ones here, the bombard, cost me like $35 each from Medbury, and I think the 5 horses were about $40, which is certainly a lot better than $125. And they also threw in, just so I could have a bit of a look at them, some medieval zombies as well, which I think is really cool. And this is actually meant to represent, I think it's Mousillon. My French is not so good. That's the what would you call it? The barony, the area of Bretonnia that fell to undead corruption, etc. It used to be amazing, and then it was overtaken by the undead. So there's a whole bunch of now Bretonnian-style zombies kicking around in Mousillon? Yep, sure. You know the one I'm talking about. It's the yellow place on that kind of west coast of Bretonnia. So we'll have a look at all these miniatures in our new product review setup, so we can have a look at how they scale against GW's existing miniatures, and also what they look like and how it all goes together and how it works. So the first thing I want to look at is their bombard. So they've got 2 styles of bombard. They've got one with wheels and one that is fixed. I got the one here with wheels because that seems more practical, especially when you're trying to move it around. It comes with a bunch of crew, and it comes with some cool little, there you go, these little guys. Let's look at that, little cannonballs there. So the bombards are a choice for the exiles in particular of Bretonnia. That is those Bretonnian lords that get sent off to the border princes for whatever reason. The Border Princes? Yeah, I think that's right. And pretty much the Bretonnians are very against using black powder, but because these guys have been exiled, they do not any longer have to follow the chivalric code, and therefore can do whatever they want. Alternate sculpts from GW in regards to the bombards. You're looking at probably an Empire cannon. The new Free Guild, I think they're called. The Free Guild Cities of Sigma army. They've got a really cool cannon that if you took away the big shield on the front could probably work, but it's pretty big, pretty chunky. And fantasy, old school fantasy is just, it's not that scale. It's not Age of Sigmar scale. So there's not a great miniature to represent something that's a little bit different, a little bit low tech, that's out there on the fringes, that's just making do. And this miniature for me absolutely summed it up beautifully. It's super simple, nothing crazy going on. If we look at it there very closely, excellent. Seeing how that works, seeing how my camera adjusts. You've got a wooden base, is the idea, and you've got a bit of a tube, a cannon tube on top there. And now you've got the wheels, which go on the side like so. Very good. You've got some axles. They don't go like so. The axles go underneath and then the wheels go into them. Perfect. Can you see that? Great. And then you've got your crew. So the crew here are just fantastic. They've got that real Bretonnian style with the, how do you describe it? Kind of the quilted vest style. I don't know, medieval words, but they look just like Bretonnian knights. I'm going to see how close I can get there and whether that helps you get some of that detail. I think it does. Yeah, there we go. That's pretty good. So you've got old mate covering his ears. We've got old mate with his hands on his hips. Looking pretty chuffed with himself as he fires his bombard off to support his baron. And you've got a guy who's feeding the cannonball in. Yep, very good. An old mate here with the fuse, I guess. He's gonna light that bad boy and send that cannonball flying towards your enemies. Bit hard to see with the white metal and the light that I've got going in here. But these miniatures are great. They really follow the Bretonnian style as opposed to the Empire style. The Empire style is very different to Bretonnia, and the Empire cannon and its crew, it just doesn't fit the aesthetic. Whereas these guys, Medbury Miniatures, absolutely perfect for it. So I got a couple of these. So let's have a look kind of how they scale up. Now the Medbury Miniatures are a little bit smaller than your more modern GW miniatures. They kind of scale to the, we'll call it the Perry scale, whatever you want to call it. It's that early to mid 90s style of Warhammer miniature that is just a little bit smaller. So I've got some here to compare. We'll look at the knight a little bit later, but I've got a old school metal dark elf here. What are these guys? The Shades, maybe? And then I've got a skeleton as well. So you'll see even these two, if we look at them side by side, the skeleton's a bit bigger, right? So that's that plastic, more modern, and I say modern, we're talking probably early 2000s for this guy, maybe late 2000s. Just a different scale. So when we look at the Medbury Miniatures, and we'll get old mate here standing with his hips, if you compare that to this metal dark elf, you'll see they actually, get a bit closer there for you, they actually scale really nicely. That is no issue whatsoever. Whereas when we compare it to our Tomb Kings, Skeleton Archer over here, you'll see, look, is a little bit shorter, but not by much. There you go. That's pretty good. So the scale on these is actually, from a bombard perspective and the infantry, absolutely fine. Now they do have more infantry, so they've got a bunch of models that'd be great for representing the peasants and the men at arms, in particular some of the more esoteric Bretonnian miniatures that come either in the Exiles or in the main book. Squires are a good example. What do we call those veteran yeomen in the Exile? Something guards, yeoman guard maybe. Either way, they're doing pretty good, and there's plenty more out there. So I just got the bombards and the mounted yeoman, but there are other medieval miniatures that come with this line, and they go great as well. The aesthetic suits beautifully. So that's the bombard. I think it's pretty good, and I'm really looking forward. You can have one bombard and I think 1,000 points for the Exiles, and I'm looking to get a couple of these in there along with the trebuchet to give me some long range firepower and have just a bit of a different Bretonnian army that isn't all knights charging forward insanely. So we'll put this one away, clear some space, and we're going to have a look at the mounted yeoman. Now this one I'm really excited about. The cost of the metal mounted yeoman from Games Workshop was absolutely obscene, and look, I want to say almost fair enough. They are doing limited print runs of these things, people. It is expensive to make bespoke-ish metal miniatures in small print runs. So they're doing the best they can, right? So they're going to be expensive. Were they overpriced? I have to say no, because they all sold out. So we certainly can't say they're overpriced. They're priced just right, apparently. But bit too expensive for this guy. Now, I think mounted yeomen, whoop, there we go, are going to be pivotal to an army. And I think in general, in this edition, there we go, fast skirmishing cavalry will be very handy for all types of reasons. So having some that are cheap, right? So having some mounted yeomen in Bretonnian list that can get very expensive with all the knights very quickly, I think would be super helpful and super important. But paying $250 for 10 mounted yeomen is a bit beyond what I want to do. So instead, we have here the alternates from Medbury Miniatures. So these are essentially the same style of the infantry that we had with the bombard crew. And get nice and close there. Yeah, there we go. That looks a bit better. So there's, I'm not sure if the guys holding the spears are actually on their website yet. These were pretty new from my understanding. They didn't even have essentially the art or whatever on these boxes. They didn't have them priced up. They were new miniatures. They're just designed specifically for the Bretonnian line. That went really nicely. So we've got a few different sculpts, and there's some bowmen as well, and we'll see if we can find some of them as we go. So here we've got, I think some might have got mixed up. Let's get them all out. So we've got a bunch of horses, we've got a bunch of shields, we've got some spears here. These will need drilling through the hands. They are there, and then essentially we've got some nice brass rods here that have been tapered off at the end to give you those spear tips. If you can, see if we can, yeah, sure. You get the idea. So we'll keep getting some out. We'll get out the shields. We'll get out the other crew. Very good, because there are as well a bunch of archers as well. So one of the things with the mounted yeomen is that they come with bows, and you can see here the other type of rider they got. I think there's 2 sculpts of each. There we go. That's the spot. That's the sweet spot for zooming in there, for getting some focus. And they've got those great big longbows on the back of them, which suit perfectly. So a bunch of different sculpts, more horses, and here we go. So we've got the spearmen. We've got some archers. I guess you mix and match within your squads. Here we go. Yeah, very good. So we've got the 2 different archer styles and the 2 different spearmen styles, from my understanding, and then the different horsey sculpts. They've kind of got different ones with their heads facing in different directions. They do have. I got walking horses because I wanted them to be just a little more relaxed for the yeoman. Let's see if we can get a close up there. Yeah, good. But they also have running mounts as well. Same style of horse, but in a galloping slight posture. My yeomen, they're just chilling out. They're at a light canter as they scout ahead of the knights. Now these miniatures, so pretty. They definitely match the aesthetic of the Bretonnia that we're going for. Same kind of aesthetic as the bombard crew, as I was saying, and they just look great. The detail on these metal miniatures is just fantastic, and that metal feel, it's so good. You can't compete with it with plastic. But how do they size up? Now, I don't have any of GW's mounted yeomen. I would have loved to compare to them, but I don't have them. But I can compare to my little knight over here. So you will see straight away that this warhorse that the knight is riding on is huge compared to our kind of mounted yeoman pony as such. If I do them exactly side by side, there we go. You'll see that there's a real size difference there. Now, I don't hate that, right? For using in the same army. Now, firstly, this horse has its head dipped, so that's something. This horse is covered in robes, so that's another. That's going to add some girth to it. But the thing is, there's going to be a big difference between your mainline charging, Destria, I don't know, horse words, knight, horse, warhorse that you would use for a line-breaking situation versus a pony that you'd have some peasants riding around on to scout ahead of your main forces, right? So I actually don't mind that size difference at all. And I feel that if the mounted yeoman horses were actually as big as the knight horses, that would be a little ridiculous and wouldn't make any sense. So I quite enjoy they're a bit of a different scale. Once you chuck a rider on here, there we go. Is he gonna stay? Kind of. There's about there's no difference at all. Hey, I would say there's a 1 mil to 2 mil difference in the height of those bad boys, which is absolutely nothing. So look, the scale is fine. They're a little more refined. You know, GW plastics are quite chunky. Their hands are absolutely huge. Their weapons are absolutely huge. Whereas the Medbury miniatures here are a bit more true scale, however you want to call that. So he's a little bit shorter and a little bit more, you know, petite, refined than that knight, but that's fine as well, because that knight's covered in all kinds of bulky armor compared to the lighter armor that you would have on a mounted yeoman. So here we go. So these are the Medbury Miniatures, mounted miniatures. I don't know what they call them exactly. I'm sure if you head over to their website, you'll be able to see them on there. I don't think they've got all of these available yet. I know they've got the archers up on there. I was able to see them. I don't think they've got the mounted yeoman style with spears yet. They'll call them something different, of course, IP being what it is. But I'm sure they'll be available soon, and if you send them an email, I'm sure they'll be able to hit you up with some great mounted miniatures. So these, to me, are an absolutely fabulous... you got your shields. You got your shields as well. They're textured on one side there. Can we get that? Yeah, good. Thanks. Working out angles. And then the other side is nice and bare for putting some heraldry on there. But I think these are an absolutely fantastic alternative, that's why I picked them up, to the GW line of mounted yeomen. I'll be running 2 squads of 5 with a bit of a mix of the spears and bowmen in there to represent the different weapons that squad can run with. So the last thing I wanted to look at, if we put these away, was these medieval zombies that they chucked in, which just look like so much fun. So we'll put these away. There's, look, Bretonnians don't just have to be a bunch of knights. They can be, the exile list in particular is really unique and really different, and I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with it, getting outcast wizards in there, getting some more rough and tumble infantry that looks a little bit more raggedy. I'm not going to try and jam those spears in there right now. That's probably going to bend those, but we'll get those off to the side and we'll have a last look here. So these are the medieval zombies, which are meant to represent the Musillon infantry, and give you a bit of a Bretonnian style for some undead, just to add some character. I think that's just so much fun. Let's see if we can... Yep, there we go. Oh, putting my hand behind it helps. I'm learning, people. I'm learning as I go. So they're really subtle in their zombiness. They don't have big outstretched hands. They're not screaming for brains, but they're in a bit of a shambling kind of pose. That's one there. This guy's great. Kind of, they're yelling out. They've got their mouths open. They're dragging their swords. Love it. This is the Bretonnian undead. This guy's little sword's broken off there on purpose. That is not an accident. They look great, don't they? Get a bit closer. Yeah, nice. And then this last guy here. This is actually, I think, an alternate sculpt of their medieval commander. It might even be the medieval commander. I don't know if this one's... I think it's a zombie. It looks pretty zombie-like. But they've, as I said, they've got a bunch of different medieval infantry. I think this model comes in a more alive style pose. And he's holding a mace and a shield there. He'll make... I think I can even get away with him being a bit alive and looking a bit ragged for that exile army, and being some infantry in amongst the GWs. Now, again, for scale, if we compare it to this Dark Elf, I think it's a shade. We're going to call him a shade. We'll see there that the scale is absolutely fine. He matches up nicely, but against the plastic, men-at-arms, it'll be interesting to see how he scales up, because they're a little bit shorter. Not by much. Not by much. Yeah. He's in a different pose too. I'm okay with it. The scale's fine. The scale's absolutely fine. That was something that I was worried about, but I don't think you need to be. So there we go. So that is the Medbury Miniatures. We've looked at the horses, the mounted yeoman style there. We've looked at the bombards. Whoop. Oh, jeez. I don't know how loud that was on camera. We've looked at the bombards, which I think are going to be one of the better alternatives you can get for miniatures to represent that unit. So yeah, jump online, check them out. The bombards are available now, and at $35 each, that's a pretty good deal compared to if you were trying to get something from GW to convert. And those Empire cannons, as an alternative, who knows when they will be out, right? So for all those people who want to run exile Bretonnian armies, I think these medieval bombards are going to be just great and give you what you're looking for. So, thank you for watching today. Hopefully you enjoy this more, this different style. Usually I do rules kind of stuff, right? But I'm looking at more product reviews. I'm doing painting tutorials. I want to do some streaming, so hopefully you enjoy that kind of stuff. Let me know in the comments exactly what you're looking for. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Medbury Miniatures. Importantly, make sure to keep rolling those dice and getting fired up for fantasy.